Good morning, students. It is Tuesday, November 17th, and today we are going to be reading a myth called Orpheus and Eurydice. So your warm for today has to do with the myth from yesterday, and then we're going to read Orpheus and Eurydice, do our myth analysis worksheet just like we did yesterday, try to summarize that myth, and then your exit ticket has to do with today's myth, Orpheus and Eurydice. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go to our today's work. We have our warm-up, our Greek myth, Orpheus and Eurydice, and again, the myth analysis worksheet, the same thing you did yesterday. If you were at school, it looks exactly the same to the paper copy you had at school. And if you're at school today, it looks exactly like the digital copy you did yesterday. And if you're distance learning, it's the same, and you'll be reading this with Miss Sequoia in your live session. All right, so we're gonna read Orpheus and Eurydice. All right. You know what? I'm going to zoom just a hair. All right. Orpheus was the son of Apollo and the muse Calliope. He was presented by his father with a lyre and taught to play upon it, which he did to such perfection that nothing could withstand the charm of his music. Not only his fellow mortals, but wild beasts were softened by his strains, and gathering round him laid by their fierceness and stood entranced with his lay. Nay, the very trees and rocks were sensible to the charm. The former crowded round him, and the latter relaxed somewhat of their hardness, softened by his notes. Hymen had been called to bless with his presence the nuptials of Orpheus and Eurydice. But though he attended, he brought no happy omens with him. His very torch smoked and brought tears into their eyes. In coincidence with such prognostics, Eurydice, shortly after her marriage, while wandering with the nymphs, her companions, was seen by the shepherd Aristos, who was struck by her beauty and made advances to her. She fled, and in flying trod upon a snake in the grass, was bitten in the foot, and died. Orpheus sang his grief to all who breathed the upper air, both gods and men, and finding it all unavailing, resolved to seek his wife in the regions of the dead. He descended by a cave situated on the side of the promontory of Tanarus, and arrived at the Stygian realm. He passed through crowds of ghosts and presented himself before the throne of Pluto and Persephone. Accompanying the words with the lyre, he sang, "O deities of the underworld, to whom all we who live must come, hear my words, for they are true. I come not to spy out the secrets of Tartarus, nor to try my strength against the three-headed dog with snaky hair who guards the entrance. I come to seek my wife, whose opening years the poisonous viper's fang has brought to an untimely end. Love has led me here. Love, a god all-powerful with us who dwell on the earth, and if old traditions say true, no less here. I implore you by these abodes full of terror, these realms of silence and uncreated things, unite again the thread of Eurydice's life. We are all destined to you, and sooner or later must pass to your domain. She too, when she shall have filled the term of life, will rightly be yours. But till then, grant her to me, I beseech you. If you deny one, I cannot return alone. You shall triumph in the death of us both." As he sang these tender strains, the very ghosts shed tears. Tantalus, in spite of his thirst, stopped for a moment his efforts for water. Ixion's wheel stood still. The vultures ceased to tear the giant's liver. The daughters of Danaus rested from their task of drawing water in a sieve, and Sisyphus sat on his rock to listen. Then, for the first time, it is said, the cheeks of the Furies were wet with tears. I'm going to pause right there. All of these characters that are being discussed here that was stopped and cried were people who were being, I hate to say it, tortured in the underworld. And so they're listening to Orpheus's song about missing his wife is so sad that they stop thinking about their terrible situation and they are crying tears for him. So it's supposed to evoke that this is super, super sad. Persephone could not resist, and Pluto gave himself away, or himself gave way. Eurydice was called. She came from among the newly arrived ghosts, limping with her wounded foot. Orpheus was permitted to take her away on one condition, that he should not turn around till they should have reached the upper air. Orpheus was permitted to take her away with him on one condition, that he should not turn around to look at her till they have reached the upper air. Under this condition, they proceeded on their way, he leading, she following, through passages dark and steep in total silence, till they had nearly reached the outlet in the cheerful upper world, when Orpheus, in a moment of forgetfulness, to assure himself that she was still following, cast a glance behind him, when instantly she was borne away. Stretching out their arms to embrace each other, they grasped only the air. Dying now a second time, she yet cannot reproach her husband, for how can she blame his impatience to behold her? Farewell, she said, a last farewell, and was hurried away, so fast that the sound hardly reached his ears. Orpheus endeavored to follow her, and besought permission to return and try once more for her release. But the stern ferryman repulsed him and refused passage. 7 days he lingered about the brink, without food or sleep, and then bitterly accusing of cruelty the powers of Erebus, he sang his complaints to the rocks and mountains, melting the hearts of tigers and moving the oaks from their stations. He held himself aloof from womankind, dwelling constantly on the recollection of his sad mischance. The Thracian maidens tried their best to captivate him, but he repulsed their advances. They bore with him as long as they could, but finding him insensible one day, excited by the rites of Bacchus, one of them exclaimed, "See yonder our despiser," and threw at him her javelin. The weapon, as soon as it came within the sound of his lyre, fell harmless at his feet, and so did the stones that they threw at him. But the women raised a scream and drowned the voice of the music, and then the missiles reached him and soon were stained with his blood. The maniacs tore him limb from limb and threw his head and his lyre into the river Hebrus, down which they floated, murmuring sad music, to which the shores responded a plaintive symphony. The muses gathered up the fragments of his body and buried them at Libretha, where the nightingale is said to sing over his grave more sweetly than any other part of Greece. His lyre was placed by Jupiter among the stars. His shade passed a second time to Tartarus, where he sought out his Eurydice and embraced her with eager arms. They roam the happy fields together now, sometimes he leading, sometimes she, and Orpheus gazes as much as he will upon her, no longer incurring a penalty for a thoughtless glance. Okay, so the myth today has to do with Orpheus and Eurydice and the story that happened with them. So I'm going to go back and we're going to look at the exit ticket for today. So you're going to be doing the myth analysis worksheet, filling out the conflict, punishment and reward, natural phenomenon. There isn't really one in this story, just a hint, there isn't really one. And then writing a summary of the myth. Remember, you're going to want to pick out those key words like character names, places, and verbs, those like action words, and that'll help you with writing your summary. And then our exit ticket for today, what was the conflict in Orpheus and Eurydice? So what was the problem? What was the conflict in the story? And then the second question is, how did this myth make you feel? Okay, you need to have at least 2 sentences, one that answers the conflict and one that tells me how this myth made you feel. If you would like to write more than 2, you are totally free to do so. And I'll be available on GChat and email, and you can also check with Miss Sequoia as well if you have any questions on today. All right, that's it. That's all I got for today. Please hold on to and remember these myths for the rest of this week, because on Thursday we're going to talk about theme in all 3 that we're reading, as well as we're going to introduce a project that you won't be starting until we are in distance learning on the 30th, but I'm at least going to introduce it on Thursday. Okay, have a great day, guys. Bye.